Hello and welcome to the big story right here on the BDTV Breakfast Show. My name is Elizabeth Musa. Today we turn our focus to a growing storm within Nigeria's security structure. And it's not just about weapons or uniforms, it's about retirement. It's about what happens after the years of service, risk, and sacrifice. Just last week, retired police officers staged a protest at the force headquarters in Abuja demanding improved pension payment. Their grievances have reignited conversations around the Contributory Pension Scheme, which is called CPS, which they say has not delivered on its promise. For many officers, this is more than policy, it's about dignity. And after years in service, they believe they deserve better. In recent months, we've seen louder calls from some within the police force to exit the CPS entirely. They say it's unfair, it's confusing, and inadequate. But is this really a failure of the system, or are there gaps in understanding, implementation, or communication? What exactly is going on here, and what would it take to fix it? Those are the questions we're asking this morning. And joining me is someone who has been at the center of this conversation. Joining me today is Mr. Oguche Aguda. Is the CEO of the Pension Fund Operators Association of Nigeria, PENOP, which is the umbrella body for pension administrators and custodians across the country. Welcome to the show, Mr. Aguda.
Nice to be here.
Very lovely to have you this morning. Let's start from the basics. Our viewers want to know what exactly is this contributory pension scheme and how it's designed to work for officers in the Nigerian police force. So if you could just enlighten us this morning.
Yeah, so the Contributory Pension Scheme came about in 2004, a little over 20 years ago. And it's important to understand why it came about. It came about because the previous pension system was unsustainable. The government didn't have money to fund its pension liabilities, and the country had various pension schemes. There was no harmonization, there was no uniformity. So the government at the time felt they needed to bring some uniformity and design a way where pensions can be sustainable. And as the name implies, it's contributory, meaning that you contribute to your pension. So your employer contributes a certain percentage. In Nigeria, it's about 10%, and you contribute 8%. So that money goes into a pot, your retirement savings account, and is managed by professional private sector fund managers, and that money grows over time. So when you retire, you've got a pot of money that you can use for your pensions. And the way it's meant to work for the police is the same manner. Whilst they are working, a portion of their money is contributed, 8%, and their employer, which is the federal government, pays 10%. That money goes into their retirement savings account. It's invested, it grows, it's compounded, such that when they do retire, they've got a pot of money that they can draw on, and they don't have to go directly to the government's finances because that model was unsustainable.
All right. And what we've been seeing of recent, we've been seeing a wave of frustration, public protests, especially among retirees. And it brings me to the question, what really is driving this, protest? Are their concerns valid?
Yeah, the concerns are valid, but what is driving the protest is actually the cost of living crisis. And it's not just with the police, it's everyone. Over the last 2 and 3 years, because of the structural changes in the economy, we've seen galloping inflation, and it's affecting everyone. So if I had 20,000 3 years ago and 20,000 now, it's not the same thing. So they're feeling the pinch because they are retirees, and they're seeing that the price of everything is going up. So that's what is causing, in our view, this recent protest, because they've seen that the money they are getting is not enough for the price of goods, and it's general, right? But the second bit is that the money they are getting comes regularly. Under the previous scheme, it wasn't coming regularly. And even under the scheme that they want to go to, where they claim the military are earning higher, and there are two issues. The military are earning higher pensions under the defined benefit scheme because their salaries are higher. And I always say, it doesn't matter what scheme you are, pensions are determined by your salary. But then the military are not having it their way as they claim. We've seen protests by the military also saying their pensions are not coming on time or it's not being paid. The reason is because their pensions under the defined benefit scheme is based on the money that the government has. When the government doesn't have money, or the boards are not working well, or there's a disruption, it doesn't come. And we've seen protests by the military. So the police wanting to go back to that scheme is not really the best way, because there are major gaps in that scheme. It's not transparent, it's not dynamic, it's not flexible, it's prone to corruption, and it's also prone to the funds that the government has, which, as we see, is limited.
Right. And, you see that some people within the force are actually calling for a complete exit from the CPS. In your opinion, do you think that's realistic?
I don't think it's realistic if you look at the whole picture, because an exit will mean you need to sell all the assets that the MPF pension has. And when you sell those assets, it depresses the financial markets. It actually distorts the system. So what they are really saying is, we don't care what happens with the system as long as I'm fine, right? So the whole system can fall down. So what I would say, it doesn't matter whether you receive ₦1 million a month. If inflation is 200%, that money doesn't mean anything to you. Or if the financial markets are down, it doesn't mean anything to you. So what we need to do as a country, we need to remove the facts from the emotions. And their concerns are valid, as are everybody's concerns. The lecturers, university lecturers are protesting. The health workers are protesting. Everybody's trying to get money from one pot, which is the federation account. So we need to rethink and say, is this sustainable, right? And clearly it's not, right? So we need to see within the system that we have, which is sustainable, how do we address their concerns, which are valid, right? And on a number of recommendations which we have made and continue to make.
And if they actually exit this, this scheme, what do you think will be some of the implications for, the industry itself and police officers?
Well, I think the first thing is that the police officers will be worse off if they do exit the scheme, because they are moving from certainty to uncertainty. As a matter of fact, there's a viral video by the IG of Police, Inspector General Kayode Betuku, who was saying, you want to move from fry pan to fire. Do you know where you're going? Have you seen the contents of that bill? The contents of that bill, police bill, which they are pushing to move into, number one, it says that their pensions are a direct debit from the federation account. The federation account is not limitless. There's so many things just in for the federation account. What happens in the years where the Nigerian government doesn't have enough money to pay their pensions, right? It also says that for you to get the pensions, I think you must have been working for about 10 years. So if you work for 6 years, for 5 years, for 1 year, and you say, I don't want to do this again, you don't get pensions. Under the Contributory Pension Scheme, it doesn't matter even if you work for a month. Once you have your retirement savings account, it is yours, and you can determine how much you want to put in that account. So it's going to be unwise for the system, because if the government, so there are about 400,000 police officers, roughly, in that range. I think between 350 and 400,000 police officers or thereabout. So if the government wants to be able to meet their pension obligations under a defined benefit scheme, the government needs to put aside 3.5 trillion naira today and ensure that it gets at least 10% every year for it to be able to meet the obligations. If not, what happens is that when people retire, the government will not have that money. And what will happen, we'll see those queues, people retire, they don't have money because it's not funded, right? That's number one. Number two is that it even has the potential of reducing the rating of the country, because one of the things that buffers Nigeria's rating is the fact that we have a pension system, we have domestic capital that invests in our bonds when the government issues bonds. So if the pension system begins to crumble, the rating of the country goes down. The rating of the country goes down. The rate at which we used to borrow internationally goes up. Foreign investors are not coming. So what happens? The police, they will think they're getting high pensions, even it might not come as often. But then the whole economy is bad. So what benefit is that? What we need to do as a country is we need to find out a system whereby when people retire, they don't need to spend on a number of things. And I always do a stupid exercise when I meet retirees. I ask them, okay, what do you need money for? And I sat down with a group of retirees and I said, please, I'm asking it really from a mind of I want to know. And one of the retirees says, no, I've got 5 kids. 4 of them are not working. So they're coming to me.
Dependent on me.
Yeah. And I say, that is not the pensions industry's problem. It's an economic problem. Why is it that when people retire and their kids are finished school, there are no jobs? So the dad and the mom have to continue, even in their retirement, to fend for their children. Another one says, I need to go to hospital. That's not the pension industry's problem. Why is the healthcare system not catering for our senior citizens? Another one says, I need to fix my car. If the transport system is okay when you're retired, all those things, you don't need to do those things. So in saner climes, in climes where they are developed, when you're retired, it's expected that that money that is coming to you is just for you. Your kids' fees, your transport, your housing should be taken care of by the system. So what is happening is that the pension industry is being penalized for being transparent and being a system that works, because everybody's looking at that money and saying, let's grab it. But how about the housing system? How about the transport system? How about the healthcare system? If those are not working in consonance, everybody's trying, to look at the system that is working. And what we need to do as a country is to ensure other systems are working just and transparent, just the way the pension system is. I ask you, every month you see money deducted from your salary as your pensions. How much is deducted from your housing scheme? Do you know how much you have in your account? Do you know what the money is used for? Many people don't know, right? So the other system needs to be able to work in order for the pension system to work. So what is happening is as if you have a rich uncle amongst poor people, and everybody wants to grab from that rich uncle. What happens? The rich uncle dies, and the whole system dies.
Absolutely. And it brings me to my next question here, because I've been thinking about if there's even like synergy, if there's a communication line between the pension fund administrators and the officers themselves, or if there is a gap, and how this can be fixed.
I agree with you. I think there needs to be more communication, needs to be more education. We're doing quite a bit to educate people. And the MPF pension is also doing a lot to educate the officers on some of these things. Financial literacy. For instance, do you know that you can actually walk back to ask yourself how much you want to get in retirement and begin to save towards it? There's something called voluntary contributions, additional voluntary contribution. So if you tell yourself, I'm going to retire in 10 years' time, and that's the beauty of the Contributory Pension Scheme, in my view, the retirement is in your hands. It puts the power in your hands. So if you tell yourself in 10 years' time, I want to be receiving $1 million every month, you can walk back to say, how much do I need to be contributing every month in order to get there? So if your employer is contributing X amount, you can decide to say, okay, I will deny myself some things and put some money inside so that the money begins to grow, is compounding. Some people will argue that, okay, I don't have enough money for even my today needs. But then retirement planning is about thinking towards the future. Investment is about denying yourself today to be able to get funds tomorrow. So that's one of the things that we need to do more. In addition, you need to be sure that you are checking your statements every quarter when they send your statements. You need to be sure that if you don't get an alert in the month, you alert your finance person or your HR person, because those things add up, right? I think we are caught in between the previous system and the new system. When I hear people talking, rightly so, they said, I've worked for my country for 35 years and this is all I got. That was the previous model. Now, you don't get people that are working for as much as 35 years. The labor market is very mobile. Someone works somewhere for 2 years, he moves. Some people work somewhere for 6 months, they move. In the previous system, if you are working like that, you won't be able to get a pension because this pension system, which we inherited from the British, was meant to ensure that you have a career, a long career in one place for 35 years. That doesn't happen again. So with this new system, you can move. Those that traveled abroad, they are still accessing their pensions, right? You are not static. This system is dynamic, right? We need to move away from the way we are thinking about, I work for someone for 35 years and my employer gives me this. Because the employer doesn't even have that money again. The federal government cannot cater for the growing civil service workforce. In 2004, when this scheme started, the police force was about 190,000. Now they've doubled in size. The government doesn't have the money to foot the police force, the whole civil service who are servicing, who are retiring. It doesn't have the money, which is why the Contributory Pension Scheme was started.
Right.
These are the issues.
It looks like you still have a lot more to say. But if you have a lot more to say, we're still listening to you, really.
Well, I think I'll pause for
you pause. But, bringing it back to, the situation on ground, obviously everything we've been saying, it's been insightful. But let's speak about the protest which we saw. Are we seeing any reforms or policy shifts, I beg your pardon, already on the way that could help us resolve these tensions in real time, restore confidence in the system?
Yes, so the protests have come about because of one key thing, which is the fact that their pensions are low. Okay. And that's valid, right? And low vis-a-vis the prices of things in the market. So again, it's based on the inflationary trends in the market, right? So the economy as a whole is fueling the protest because they're saying the money I'm receiving, if I go to the market, I'm not able to get much, right? And that has to do with the inflationary environment. It's low. So what we need to do to increase it is to be able to say, okay, we'll augment the amount that you are getting. And that's the first thing that has been done. In June this year, pensioners, their pension payout has been increased by an average of 40%. Meaning that some are going to receive more than 40, some less than 40, depending on how much you have in your account, based on the investment returns. PENCOM approved the pension boost as of June 2025. And for July, August, till the end of the year, you will see that your pensions has increased, the quantum of your pension. So that's one thing that has been done. And it's hoped that this is going to be an annual exercise whereby, based on the investment returns that your pension generates, you're able to get a boost. So that's happening. Another recommendation that we've made is to be able to increase the contribution by the employer for the police officers to about 20%. Because, I said the employer does 10%, minimum 10%, and the employee 8%. The employer can decide to increase the percentages contribution so that the money in their retirement savings account is higher. If the money in the retirement savings account is higher, it's invested more, it's compounded, and the money they get when they retire is higher. So those are some of the things that are being done. And a number of other options. I mean, the key, in my view, in our views, the welfare of the police.
Right.
If their salaries are higher, if their promotion cycles are better, if their welfare is done higher, done quicker, it will affect the amount of money that is in their RSA account. Because, I always tell people, do you see retirees from CBN protesting? Do you see retirees from NNPC protesting? Do you see retirees from FRS protesting? They are also under the CPS. So that's one thing I want people to think about. Why are they not protesting? Why are they not saying they want to leave and go back? So the police are, because their salaries are low and their cycles, their promotion cycles are not are not as the other MDAs, and financial literacy. There needs to be more financial literacy. Where they realize that retirement planning is a business and it is your personal right. And I tell retirees when I meet with them, don't put retirement planning in the hands of anyone, not your employer, not your government. It is you. And that's what the CPS does. Retirement planning, it brings it back to you. When you now say, oh, I need the government to pay this, what if the government doesn't have money? What if your company folds up? So you need to take that reign and that power back to yourself. And that's what the CPS does.
So finally, let's say someone is watching right now, a serving officer watching right now, who's anxious or, uncertain about what their retirement may look like. If you were to give them an advice, what practical advice or reassurance will you be giving them today?
So what I'll tell a police officer watching right now, the first thing I'll say, do you know how much is in your retirement savings account? The first thing is to be able to check your statements. And your PFA is meant to send it to you on a monthly basis. If they don't send it to you, you go and meet them. You can also report at PENCOM. Every month, you're also meant to get a text message that shows how much has been contributed, right? So those things, knowledge is key. You need to know how much has been contributed. The other thing you need to know is you need to understand the fund that you are in. So there are different funds that the PFAs, the pension fund administrators, can invest in. If you think one fund is not giving you the better return, you can choose to move to a different fund, because under the Contributory Pension Scheme, how much you receive is dependent on the investment returns, right? The other thing that you need to do is you need to ask yourself, if you've got any small money, extra money, 1,000, 2,000, you can decide to say, I want to invest more and contribute more to my retirement savings account, because that money will, in the end, it will add up to your retirement. And also, engage your PFA. Have conversations with them. Don't leave your retirement to the hands of the government or when you retire. It's something that you need to be thinking about it on a constant basis, and realize that under this scheme, your pensions are, in a sense, guaranteed. It's going to come. Under the other scheme, you're not sure whether it's going to come or not. Another thing is to also be diligent in your job. Diligent in your job, you're getting promotions, your salary increases, your pensions increases, and then your amount you get in retirement increases. So it's up to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aguda Kuche, for your very insightful contributions this morning on The Big Story. It was truly, truly, truly amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
And this is where we wrap it up this morning on The Big Story here on the BDTV Breakfast Show. My name is Elizabeth Mota. Up next is Social Listening. Do stay with us.